Hello everyone, welcome to the studio. Today I'm going to walk you through the many steps that are taken to produce animated masterpieces from old to new. But before we get started with that, we got to go over the history of animation, different types of animation out there, and how to animate in a classical format, and talk about some modern examples. So let's grab our pencils and paper and let's get animating. From Disney to Ghibli to video games, your favorite TV shows, animation has been a key part of the entertainment industry for generations. In the simplest terms, it's the sequence of images moving quickly to depict motion. It couldn't be simpler. In fact, it was so simple that cave people were to figure it out, with many cave paintings depicting animals with 4 legs to depict a sequence of motion. Centuries later, in the 1910s, photography allowed artists to easily distribute and copy their films. It wasn't later until 1945, however, when stop motion became popular as the earliest application of depicting 3D characters in the real world. However, since then, for example, according to Johnny Dykstra, one of the producers behind Star Wars, many Star Wars films use physical models of the actual ships to depict their size and mass in space. However, more recently, 3D animation has taken the industry by storm, with Pixar being the big pioneer in the early stages of 3D computer animation. When it used to be underneath Lucasfilms, the same people responsible for Star Wars and Indiana Jones. However, more recently, other studios like Sony, DreamWorks, and Illumination have prioritized the use of 3D computer animation due to the demands for graphical realism and the fact that you only require a single computer, unlike the delicate craft materials required for traditional animation. So when you think of the different types of animation, 2D and 3D are the first thing that come to mind. But as we already covered, that only draws over the very first layer of animation's many variations. For example, when it comes to 2D, we've already said that traditional animation includes hand-painted and drawn cells using pencils and paint. Or we can use that, or we can use the modern digital tablet or pen display interface that allows you to that improves the workflow of animating. But with 3D, it takes on a whole new motion with stop motion, which uses malleable materials such as clay and armature wire to depict characters. However, more recently, 3D computer animation has taken the industry by storm, as it uses, as according to Richard Williams in his book, The Animator Survival Kit, it uses a similar rigging system to stop motion, but has the added benefit of creating visuals that would otherwise be impossible. So, if we want to start animating in the classical format, the first thing we'd have to do is to get our cells and paper lined up. But wait, what exactly are cells? Well, put it simply, cells are sheets of acetate plastic that are animated and allow us to animate characters in multiple layers. And there are 3 steps of producing a single cell of animation. The first step is the drawing, in which we lay out the character's form and overall shape. This is the most important step since it often dictates the final quality of the product. Next step is inking, in which we pick out all of the most important details in the animation. After this is the hardest step, which is painting, in which we have to make flat and vibrant colors for each of the characters. This often includes either... Okay, so Wait, what? That's not right. Can you pause it? So when it comes to painting cells, one of the first methods we could use is cell vinyl paint, which is now discontinued, to paint over the inking, or we can use the more available method, which is acrylic paint, which allows us to paint on the back side of the cell to make the colors more vibrant and hide all the brush strokes. with some industry knowledge and imagination, we can make effects that are breathtaking. However, so now that we've had our cell fully rendered, we have to go back and do it all over again, because we have to do that at least 23 more times before we get a single second of animation. As you can tell, it's a lot of work. That's why we often do these projects as teams, often working several days or nights without sleep. And yeah. No, pause it again. Well, these people, and that sounds horrifying. You still have to remember these are people who pursue their goals despite their limitations. It's important we address one of the biggest threats to animation's integrity and creativity, notably artificial intelligence, which threatens to replace artists in every industry. However, that isn't the case always. More recently, Aaron Blaise, one of the artists behind Aladdin, Brother Bear, and Beauty and the Beast, released his own animated short film called Snow Bear, which he used the skills he learned during his years working at Disney. Another big example would be Gint Zabalodez, who started his project all the way back in 2015, where he used a unique process where he would directly create and place 3D models without drawing a storyboard. He did all this using Blender, a completely open source and free software that any one of you can download and use. Well, you may not know what Gint or Blender is. You might know this movie. It's called Flow. So ultimately, whether you think people take animation too seriously or if it's a valid profession, you must admit that animation plays a huge role in all the media we see today. So to rewind our production, we have covered the way animation has been produced in the past, the different ways you can make animation, how to make it in a classical format, and ending it talking about modern examples. So we can finally sit back after all our hard work and see our final production, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all for.